Another day, another story. Rabbit and Tortoise. Story continues. Once upon a time, a tortoise and a rabbit had an argument about who was faster. They decided to settle the argument with a race. They agreed on a route and started off the race. The rabbit shot ahead and ran briskly for some time. Then, seeing that he was far ahead of the tortoise, he thought he'd sit under a tree for some time and relax before continuing the race. He sat under the tree and soon fell asleep. The tortoise, plodding on, overtook him and soon finished the race, emerging as the undisputed champ. The rabbit woke up and realized that he'd lost the race. The moral of the story is that slow and steady wins the race. This is the version of the story that we've all grown up with. But then recently, the story still continues. The rabbit was disappointed at losing the race and he did some soul searching. He realized that he'd lost the race only because he had been overconfident, careless and lax. If he had not taken things for granted, there's no way the tortoise could have beaten him. So he challenged the tortoise to another race. The tortoise agreed. This time, the rabbit went all out and ran without stopping from start to finish. He won by several miles. The moral of the story? Fast and consistent always beats the slow and steady. It's good to be slow and steady, but it's better to be fast and reliable. But the story doesn't end here. The tortoise did some thinking this time, and realized that there's no way he can beat the rabbit in a race the way it was currently formatted. He thought for a while, and then challenged the rabbit to another race, but on a slightly different route. The rabbit agreed. They started off. In keeping with his self-made commitment to be consistently fast, the rabbit took off and ran at top speed until he came to a broad river. The finishing line was a couple of kilometers on the other side of the river. The rabbit sat there wondering what to do. In the meantime, the tortoise trundled along, got into the river, swam to the opposite bank, continued walking and finished the race. The moral of the story? First identify your core competency and then change the playing field to suit your core competency. Leverage on your strengths and minimize exposure to your weaknesses. The story continues. The rabbit and the tortoise, by this time, had become pretty good friends and they did some thinking together. Both realized that the last race could have been run much better. So they decided to do the last race again, but to run as a team this time. They started off, and this time the rabbit carried the tortoise till the riverbank. There, the tortoise took over and swam across with the rabbit on his back. On the opposite bank, the rabbit again carried the tortoise and they reached the finishing line together. They both felt a greater sense of satisfaction than they'd felt earlier. The moral of the story? It's good to be individually brilliant and to have strong core competencies. However, one person can only achieve so much. If you are able to work in a team and harness each other's core competencies, the sum of whole will be greater than the sum of parts. Teamwork is mainly about situational leadership, letting the person with the relevant core competency for a situation take leadership. To sum up, the story of the rabbit and tortoise teaches us many things. 1. The fast and consistent will always win the slow and steady. 2. Know your strengths and weaknesses. Leverage on your strengths and minimize exposure to your weaknesses. 3. Pool resources and work with a team. The sum of the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. 4. We learn more from failures than successes. 5. Compete against the situation, not against a rival. 6. Situational leadership is an effective way to leverage on one another's strengths. This story first appeared in October 2014 by Vietnam Recruitment Agency.